This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted joined by Richie Woodhall out here in Las Vegas. Richie, first and foremost, how are you?
I'm very fine, thanks. I've been here a day now, so it's always good to come to Vegas. Bit of a long flight, but yeah, it's good to be here. So looking forward to it now.
Undisputed title action on Saturday night. Richie, we get to see the pound-for-pound star Saul Canelo Alvarez return to the ring. First and foremost, what are you expecting from this fight between Canelo and Caleb Plant?
I think it's going to be a really cracking fight. I think Plant has got a better chance than what people give him. He's got the height and reach, which I think is going to be really important and significant. But you're up against the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world, so I think this fight will tell us how good Caleb Plant really is. He looks very good. He's improving in every contest that he's having, especially at world championship level. So I think, like I say, he'll be put to the test against the best pound-for-pound fighter.
If you was in Caleb's corner, Richie, what type of advice would you give him? How would you expect him to try and approach this fight to be successful?
Well, the one thing you've got to do against Canelo is you've got to try and stop him coming forward. If you watch the way he boxes, he just walks his opponents down. 9 times out of 10, he lacks the height and reach, so that's a disadvantage to him. But that doesn't really bother him because he comes forward, he moves his head, he knows he's got to close that gap down, and he gets more and more confident as the fight goes on. I think you've got to stop that. I think what I would be hoping to do if I were boxing against him, or if I was in Caleb Plant's corner, is I would be saying to Plant, listen, you've got to hurt him and try and hurt him early to gain his respect. If you just allow him to walk you down, then he gets into his rhythm and a groove, and he's very difficult to box against because he just grows in confidence, and then he's explosive. We all know how good he is. So I think it's really important for Plant to try and establish something early and to hurt him. And like I say, it's to gain that respect. That's what's needed for Plant early on in the contest, and then that may then set a different pattern to the fight. But if he just allows Canelo to come forward the way he does, then it could be a foregone conclusion. But I actually believe that Plant has got a good chance, and he could possibly get the respect off Canelo early on. I think that's what he's got to do.
Throughout this week, one word that's been thrown around is underestimate. Do you think people have underestimated Caleb Plant, or is it more so just because of the talent we know Canelo possesses, they're kind of just making him effectively a heavy favourite for Saturday?
Well, he's a heavy favourite because he's just boxed at a much higher level than Caleb Plant has. But you have to give Plant credit for what he's done. He's only had 21 contests, still undefeated, and since he's been at world championship level, I think he's got better since he's won the title. And he's improving all the time. This is my point. He's a good fighter, Plant, and I don't think Canelo will underestimate him, to be quite honest, because he's very professional, and he goes about every fight in the same sort of fashion, and he's very well prepared. But if he does underestimate him, then you never know in this game. Canelo's in his prime. I don't think he's going to get any better. He is what he is. He's a brilliant, he's best pound-for-pound fighter. Listen, I think Caleb Plant's really up against it, but we still don't know how good I think Caleb Plant is. And if he can keep improving, well, this is the fight where he's got to do that.
Do you see Caleb Plant as a tougher test in comparison to what Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders were for Canelo's previous 2 world title unification fights at 168?
No, I think it's a similar test, especially when you can consider Plant to Callum Smith. I thought Callum Smith in some parts of the fight did really well, but he just couldn't stop Alvarez coming forward, Canelo coming forward. That was his main problem. With Billy Joe Saunders, I thought he boxed quite a good fight, Saunders, because he just totally frustrated Canelo. So maybe it's got to be a bit of both from Plant. He can learn from those 2 fights, trying to frustrate Canelo, make him miss. But at the same time, I think he's got to learn from those 2 fights also and push Canelo back. You cannot allow Canelo to get into a groove and push you forward, push you back, especially onto the ropes. He's got to avoid going onto the ropes.
What is your prediction for Saturday night, Richie? We've saw Canelo earlier in this week mention between 7 to 9 he feels he can stop Caleb Plant.
I don't think he's going to stop him. I think I'd still go for Canelo, but I think he'll go on points. I think for the first half of the fight, I think Plant will be ahead. I think it'll be a case of catch up for Canelo, and I think he probably will get to him. I can't see Plant winning on points here in Vegas. I've got to say it, because for me, Canelo will have the crowd behind him. and that can sway judges, and it's going to be very difficult for Plant to beat him on points. So I don't think Plant will beat him on points. I think it'll be a lot closer than what people think, but I can see Canelo coming through and winning this one on points.
Just on Canelo, as we know he's a special fighter, the chance for him to become the first undisputed Mexican world champion. What are you expecting to see from him on Saturday night?
I'm expecting to see more of the same, to be quite honest. Obviously, there's a bit of needle in this one now. It's got a little bit personal, which is a bit of a rare thing for Canelo. He normally keeps really calm, but we've seen him obviously lose his temper a couple of times in the press conference or whatever. So I'm expecting him to be calm and cool on the night. Similar performance to what he normally does, trying to close that gap and be explosive. It's just more of the same for Canelo. He's very confident. He's got a great chin also, so even if Caleb Plant does catch him with big shots, then he's probably the ultimate all-round fighter of today, Canelo. And I'm expecting more of the same. Very explosive, very fast with his punches. But I think it'll be a cracking fight. And like I say, I think it's going to go all the way, and it'll be a belter, and it'll go to points for Canelo. That's what I think.
Moving away from this fight week, Richie, last time we saw each other was in this room, Fury-Whyte 3 fight week. Obviously a terrific all-action contest there. Just to go back on it, what did you make of it?
Oh, it was a fantastic fight, that was. I think it was the most exciting fight that I have ever commentated on, because although obviously Tyson came through and dominated towards the end, it was one of them that could have turned around on one punch. That's the excitement that Deontay Wilder brings to a contest. And it was an up and down fight, wasn't it? I actually thought Fury was going to win. I predicted between rounds 4 and 6, and after that third round I thought, well, I'm doing okay, he's going to do that. And then fourth round, obviously he goes down twice, and then he gets to, obviously Wilder eventually gets to the 11th. But yeah, it was a very, very exciting fight. The best and most exciting I think I've commentated on. And Tyson Fury, mate, he's some fighter, that fella.
Just on Tyson, potential talk of what's next for him, a potential fight there with Dillian Whyte being mentioned, for WBC looking to potentially order that. Just want to get your thoughts on that fight, if it was to happen, Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte.
I think it's a good fight. I think Dillian Whyte's a good, hard man himself. He'll be up for it. He's obviously been out of the ring for a while now, which could go against him. He could have done with the Otto Wallin fight, to be quite honest, but he's got injured. But yeah, listen, it's a tough fight. Tyson knows that. You're in again. They're big men, and one punch can just change the whole complexion of a contest in the heavyweight division. So I think Fury would have to be the favourite for me, but like I say, he'd have to be 100% totally focused on a really hard challenge. So yeah, I'd look forward to it, and I think Dillian Whyte's in with a good chance, but I'd still probably go for Fury in a tough fight.
Final one, another name that's been mentioned for Tyson is Joe Joyce. What do you think would be a tougher test, Tyson versus Joe or Tyson versus Dillian?
Oh, similar. They're tough men. I think that the challenge with Joyce is slightly different with Dillian, because I think Joyce probably works at a higher tempo and higher work rate. I know all about Joe Joyce because obviously I coached him also with the Olympic team. So tremendous athlete. Probably the fittest, one of the fittest, if not the fittest heavyweight on the planet, because he can just keep going round after round. That's why they call him the juggernaut. A little bit predictable at times because of the way he comes forward, but nevertheless, if you don't knock Joe Joyce out, then you're going to be in there for the 12 rounds, and and there's a possibility he could outwork you. So that would be a tough fight for Tyson, like I say. And Joe Joyce, although people might think he's getting on in age, he's still fairly inexperienced in terms of professional boxing and world championship level, and he's still very, very eager to obviously to be successful. So that would be again a cracking fight. The thing is with Tyson Fury is he's got to, and he knows it himself, you've got to stay motivated and stay hungry. That will be his biggest, I think, challenge as his career goes on. He's got to stay hungry. But yeah, cracking fighter. And Dillian Whyte and Joe Joyce, I think, will be tough fights for Tyson.
All right, Richie, we'll leave that there now. Leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and your time here in Vegas. I'm sure I'll continue to pester you throughout the week, but it's good to see you out here as well. Thank you for your time, and thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
All the best.